All right, TikTok, some more free game for you. So this is a 5.3. I just did a cam swap in. Now I'm finishing putting it together, putting in the pickup tube and the oil pan. But let me show you guys oil pan. I see a lot of people on Facebook groups and LS groups asking, oh, what oil pan do I need for my swap, blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of it depends on the steering setup in your car. So the Mopar has rear steer, so you can't use rear sump. So I had to use front sump. Most GM is all front steer, so obviously you're gonna use rear sump. This is a knockoff Holley 302-2 from Amazon. It's made by Lowstar in China. This is the same exact pan that Holley makes, just now they finally got around to making knockoffs, which is great because the Holley pan is like $450 and this one I believe is like $220. And it comes with pickup tube. If you don't know what a pickup tube is, pickup tube picks up your oil. It does not come with a windage tray though, so get you an F-body windage tray. You can use the factory truck windage tray, but you have to cut off from here to there on the factory truck windage tray for it to clear basically this in general, because this sits much higher up than the truck pan. It sits a little deeper. The good thing about these Holley 302-2 compared to an F-body, so picture an F-body pan right there. The F-body pan, when the sump starts to come down, is actually about this much farther towards the front, to where the Holley 302-2 is farther back, giving you more steering clearance. So any GM vehicle you have, I would highly recommend this 302-2. So your Chevelles, Novas, Camaros, all your 80s model G-bodies, early 60s Impalas, just every GM in general, I would use that. Your trucks, this is going into 64 C10, so your trucks, but let's throw it on. So windage tray only goes on one way, and see how it's basically cut from the front too. That's how you do your stock truck pan if you don't feel like spending money on one of these F-body windage trays. Now for the pickup tube, depending on what oil pump you put in, if you go back to my first video and you use the oil pump that I posted in there, which is the Melling, it comes with 2 different O-rings. And make sure you put the correct O-ring on the end, or else you'll have oil pressure issues, and then you'll have to take this all back apart. So you got the the groove end, the tapered end, and the straight end. Well, this, as you can tell, is a straight end, so make sure you go with the black O-ring. This already came with a black O-ring, but I'm just going to use the one Melling gave me just in case, even though they're probably the same. But I'm going to throw that black O-ring on, and then this end goes in there. It comes with 2 bolts. I'm going to have to find a second bolt. Typically from the factory it only comes with 1, so I'm going to have to dig in my LS pile over there and find a second bolt. Let's go ahead and tighten down the nuts for the windage tray. This is all you need, impact or hand tight, whichever. Tight. Torqued. Damn. Torqued. So you got the pickup tube in. Make sure it's nice and tight in there. You don't want any air to be able to get through that O-ring, or that'll cause low oil pressure, because the oil pressure will seep through and not strictly be coming through the tube and the oil pump. And it actually came with the bolts, all the bolts needed. It's just those Allen head bolts. They're the only ones in the package, so don't try to use the other small ones because they're not the right thread. Alright, so I had to take off the rear cover because, well, one, I'm replacing the rear main seal, and I got a whole cover for it. So that took about 30 years. But also because on the oil pans, you want to make sure to put a gasket maker on the corners, on all 4 corners, and then along the bottom of the cover on the back. That's just my recommendation from past experiences. So make sure you dab those corners, because they don't get the greatest seal when you put the oil pan on. So I put it on block side and gasket side on both corners. Also add a little bead right there, but that's not necessary, just extra precaution, because he's making this very, very, very nice truck wise, and he doesn't want any leaks. So corners, top, bottom, back on this side where the rear cover is actually going to go down. That's where you'll put the bead, or you can just put it on the bottom of the cover before you smash it on. But we'll get. So I got the pan on, tighten down. If you want, wipe up the corners so it doesn't stick out too much. Now we're putting the oil filter. I don't know what you'd call this. Putting this on for the oil filter. Now with these aftermarket oil pans, these cheap ones, these aren't the same as the factory oil pan. These actually take a Gen 4 truck or SUV oil filter. They're a little bit wider, so they don't fit the Gen 3 oil filters. So that's something really good to know, so you don't have to go digging through Google like I did. This also comes with this O-ring that is way too big and doesn't fit correctly. So I just use tape, thread tape, so that no oil seeps out through there and you lose any oil pressure. But yeah, just bolt it in. So now we're just putting the rear cover on. These have, you can put these in here, you're not necessarily needed. I've never used one, didn't even know where it went. But this is a plug to supposedly help oil pressure, because somewhere where this hole leads, it can lose oil pressure. So it's up to you. But we're gonna put a bead all right there, and then throw the rear cover on. Bead on. Sure you get those corners. So rear cover is on, and that is it. It is done. Just need to mate it up to the transmission, and it'll be ready to go in. Hope these tips help y'all.